Which team will make the trade for Kevin Durant? Been just over a week since Durant's trade request. And yesterday, his former teammate Draymond Green backed Durant's decision on his podcast. Listen to this.
If Kevin Durant says, I actually don't want to be here anymore, I want to go to somewhere else, why does it matter? Why does that make you weak? Why does that make him, it means he's running from something? If someone leaves Google to go to Apple after 3 or 4 years, and then they leave Apple after 2 years to go to Tesla, and then they leave Tesla after 4 years to go to DocuSign, no one's going to say that person ran. Everyone's going to say that person did what was best for their career.
Yeah, obviously, and I don't know who's saying otherwise, but Draymond thinks somebody is, or else he's listing potential sponsors for his podcast that he's hoping to lock in. Who knows? Brian Windhorst, what did you make of Draymond's comments on Kevin Durant?
Well, I always love hearing from Draymond Green, and he's completely over-the-top pro player, which is what he should be as a player. If you want to stick with his analogy, you can leave Google to go to Apple or whatever, but it's hard to leave Google if you've got a 4-year contract. And so that's a factor here. And so when you talk about perception, and we're talking about these players as businessmen have consequences for breaking contracts. That's the way of the business world. And so if you want to talk about Kevin Durant as a businessman, he would have to stay in Brooklyn and fulfill that contract. As a talented person, as a talent player, he has the ability to force his way out of a contract. And that's the reality of what NBA is. It's not a normal business in any sense of the word. Ask the billionaires who buy teams and get frustrated about it. And now that's Joe Tsai, frustrated he's got to break up what he thought was a championship contender.
Dan, this is exactly why what Wendy just described, the Warriors love Steph Curry so much.
Yeah.
Because as a businessman and as a guy who is all the talent in the world, he never wanted to go anywhere else. He was comfortable in his surroundings in the Bay. He wanted to make it work with the Warriors. He knew they would surround him with the talent to do it even after KD left. He knew and had faith in the coaching staff and the front office and ownership to pour all their resources into making it work. When you hear Steve Kerr and all the Warriors personnel sing the praises of Steph Curry, this is exactly why. They knew he was going to be there, and he never gave them a reason to think otherwise.
Sure, but that's the whole point here, right? Like, different people want different things, right? And Kevin Durant obviously wants something different than what he's got in Brooklyn, right?
I don't think anyone is actually mad at Kevin Durant. I don't really know what Draymond, God bless Draymond, I love him, I don't know what he's talking about because Durant was the one who showed up and played when he was healthy. Kyrie took hiatuses for whatever reason, didn't get vaccinated, didn't play. Harden saw that and was like, I'm going to stop trying and quit on the team until I get my way out of here. Durant was the one playing 48 minutes overtime against the Bucks in the conference semifinals. He's the one that showed up. I don't think anyone begrudges him, really. Is there a sort of breaking contract issue around the league in terms of trade demands and trade requests? That's for the CBA negotiations going forward, which are going to be ugly. But Durant was the one who gave everything he had.
All right, fine. So we've put the Draymond stuff to bed for now, at least, until he comments on your comments on Harden and Kyrie. We'll see what he has to say about that. But Brian, where do things stand here with this potential trade for Durant? What's the market looking like?
We have a pretty gigantic gulf between what the Nets' value of Kevin Durant is and what the market is willing to pay. And again, this requires some nuance, and I know that this potentially will be taken out of that context, but Kevin Durant is obviously a very valuable player. Nobody doubts that this guy is still in his prime years as an MVP level candidate who can completely swing a team from pretender to contender with his presence. However, the market does not want to pay a super premium price for him because if you trade away all of these top assets on your team to get him, he becomes less valuable to you. And that gulf is why we are in a stalemate right now and could have one for a while.
Yeah, and if it's going to be a while, we have to find a way to fill the time. So we've created a game called Make Me a Trade. I want to know what these deals are actually going to look like, right? So, Zach, tell me what Phoenix is apparently on Kevin Durant's wish list. Tell me what that deal would look like.
Phoenix isn't only on the wish list. I'm told it's by far #1 on the wish list. So here's a trade right here. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Dario Saric for filler, 4 firsts, 3 swaps. A couple things. You'll notice DeAndre Ayton's name is not there. He was the first name that kind of came up. I'm not sure the Nets are super into DeAndre Ayton. There are 3 team trade scenarios where he goes other places for other assets that get built into this. That's going to start happening or more being played this weekend when the Malcolm Brogdon trade becomes official and he and the Pacers have potential cap room to get in the game with DeAndre Ayton. That trade, look, would the Suns haggle over protections and how many picks? Sure. Is that the sexiest trade for the Nets? Not really. When you look at what the Wolves got for Rudy Gobert, that's not going to light the Nets front offices on fire. But that might be the floor for what other teams are going to have to beat. And it's not awesome. But look, the Gobert trade has warped expectations. Like you just, from one team, you just can't get more than 4, 6, whatever draft picks. That's an okay return. It's not great though.
I got to say real quick.
We'll see if Zach
right
can get
now.
any. Brian's got something to say.
I just want to point something out real quick. What Zach just described is a trade that makes sense from a value standpoint. But today, right now, I don't think the Suns are offering that. They're not offering 4 picks and 3 swaps. And that is why we're talking about the gap. Even that trade isn't that great. And I don't even think the Suns are there yet because who else is offering 4 picks right now? Nobody.
It just, like I said, they would haggle over the number of picks, over the protections on the picks for sure.
Yeah, Wendy, we're just making this up. That's what we're doing here because we're trying to fill the time. We'll see if Zach can make any sexier deals as the show. 1 week since Kevin Durant requested a trade out of Brooklyn. At the time of the request, it was reported that his preferred destinations were the Phoenix Suns and the Miami Heat. Here we are a week later, and we are still awaiting a resolution on this situation. So we bring in our very knowledgeable basketball crew, Brian Windhorst, Zach Lowe, and Nick Friedel. Wendy, I want to start with you. Where do things stand right now with KD and a potential trade?
Yeah, when the Nets put him on the market, Dan, I think they thought there was going to be a tremendous bidding war. And while there's a lot of interest, from what I can tell, that bidding war isn't really hot right now. The teams have made their offers, and they don't really feel the need to increase them. Now, maybe we'll see a little bit of action coming out of Summer League. All of the executives are gathering in Las Vegas over the next few days, and there could be a restart in action there. But there's been a couple of things that have happened that have even made it more complicated that involve the Utah Jazz. The Jazz make this trade with Rudy Gobert last week where they get an incredible haul of draft picks, in which the Nets respond by saying, well, now the price for Durant just went higher. And the rest of the league is kind of saying, we don't think so. We don't want to pay that price. We didn't like that trade. And then you look at Donovan Mitchell. After the Gobert trade, there was a belief that maybe Mitchell would be next, and maybe at some point he will be. But for now, the Jazz are telling people they don't intend to trade him. And on Mitchell's side, he's going to stand pat. He's not going to force any action right now. So without Mitchell in the market, the teams are not trying to outbid each other. It doesn't make sense for teams to sell their house to pay for a car, even if that car is a Lamborghini like Kevin Durant.
So Nick, what is your recourse if you're the Nets here with the market frozen?
You just have to hope that it changes. But then this is a problem. To Brian's point, the Nets were hoping, all right, Kevin Durant's available. We're going to take everything we possibly can. And that hasn't been the case. It's not like Sean Marks, Brooklyn's GM's, going into work every day going, you know what I want to do today? I want to trade Kevin Durant. That's the last thing in the world this team wants because they're completely irrelevant the second they make that deal as far as title contention. But if you have a list of teams that he wants to go to and you're trying, at least in some way, to help him get to a preferred destination, these teams are all seeing what's going on, and they're seeing that they can potentially wait it out. The difference is he's got 4 years, so the Nets can say, okay, we can bring him back, and they can pull this thing throughout the summer into training camp. It's possible, but I still think something ends up getting done here at some point.
Zach, do you think that's a legitimate threat from the Nets? Could we could actually keep him on the team or no?
I think they'd like everyone to think that it's a legitimate threat, and maybe it is. Look, what everyone is saying is right. The Rudy Gobert trade was a double-edged sword for the Nets. On the one hand, it would seem to increase the price for Kevin Durant. On the other hand, it set an impossible standard for Sean Marks and the Nets to hit. You just can't get more draft picks from one team than the Jazz got from Minnesota in that trade. The standard is impossible. And then you have the list. Phoenix and Miami. And I think Phoenix, from my reporting, is a clear number one on that list. The teams who aren't on that list are going to have two separate offers for Kevin Durant. The offer that the motherload offer they'll give only if they feel like Durant wants to go there, if they can meet with him, and a lesser offer that they will give if they can't meet with Durant and so they're uncertain. But as far as Durant going back to the Nets, look, you have to say that. They have to say that. I'll believe it when I see it. And as Nick Friedel knows better than anyone, I've come to expect the worst for the Nets. They played tough with Harden. We saw what happened there. So I'm expecting something to happen before the season.
So what's the pressure point here? Like, what has to change in order for this market to kind of unfreeze?
This is why this is so strange right now, Dan, because I've covered Kevin in Oakland with the Warriors. I've now covered him in Brooklyn. The guy wants to win badly. And if he's looking